to today's Energy Efficiency for Small and Mid-Sized Business webinar. All of PGE's seminars and webinars are in part sponsored by the Energy Trust of Oregon. We work together to make sure that the concepts and recommendations you learn in our events are consistent across all of our individual programs and services. In today's webinar, we are going to discuss some of the simple ideas for saving energy at your place of business. Some are small tips and tricks you can do yourself. Other ideas discuss efficient investments you can make to help curb your energy use and potentially lower your bills. First, we'll learn how to calculate how much power you actually use in your business day to day and what that costs. Second, we'll discuss how different businesses use energy and their potential for savings. Then we'll talk specifically about improvements that can be made to building systems, in particular lighting and HVAC. And finally, we'll cover some low-cost and no-cost tips and available programs that help businesses engage in efficiency measures. Energy and power. So here are some quick definitions. Power is the rate at which work is done. We measure electrical power in a term called watts. Now, watts is like the horsepower that drives a device. If you compare it to a car, watts is the horsepower, watts is the punch that makes it go. Now, energy is power over time. What we use with watts is that we use watts to measure a basic unit of electrical power. And with energy, it's watts over power in a given time, let's say hours. So we measure watts in watt hours. And on your bill, it's measured in kilowatt hours, or kWh. Here's where we figure out what it costs to run devices, what it costs to run lights, things at your place of business. So it's pretty easy to do that. What we do is we take the amount of power in watts times the time it's used in hours. Watts are small, so that to measure the energy in usable units, we use units of 1,000 watts, or kWh, kilowatt hours, or kW, I'm sorry. So 1,000 watts in an hour is 1 kilowatt hour. To give you some perspective, let's use an example. If I told you my car was worth $1,000,000 pennies, you might look at me strangely. But if I told you it was worth $10,000, that would make sense. So it's the same amount, just different units, and that's what we use to measure kWh in electricity. So let's do this calculation. This is a standard, old school, 100-watt incandescent bulb. And anytime you turn it on, it uses 100 watts. Let's say we're going to have it on for 8 hours a day, every day of the year. That's 8 times 365, and that equals 2,920 hours. So to figure out the kWh that this would use for that amount of usage per year, we would do 100 watts times 2,920 hours, and we divide that by 1,000 to get the kWh. We'd end up with 292 kilowatt hours. Here's a graph just to show you what I was just discussing. And we bill out in kWh. That's why I'm focusing on kWh, because that will give you a perspective of what is used in electricity. So here's a visual for you visual learners, just the 100-watt light bulb with multiply it by the hours used and then divide by 1,000 to get the kWh. And here's a further breakdown of what we charge our customers. Now, I looked on the roster and I saw that there was a lot of energy managers here. So you might have a bigger facility. Most likely, if you're an energy manager and you have a larger facility, you're an industrial customer, you'll be a Schedule 83 customer. You pay a little less per kWh than our small to mid-sized business customer pays, which is 8 cents. Either way, you can use this formula to figure out how much energy you're using and how much it costs. So let's do the math. We already got this part with the kWh, how much it uses per year. And if we times that times the amount we charge per kWh for a small to mid-sized business customer to run that bulb all year long, it's going to cost $23.50 on average. And here's another visual for you visual learners. So it's another step in this process where you apply the cost per kilowatt hours to come up with the amount that it is going to cost to run per year. So we just talked about that kWh, watts times hours divided by 1,000 to get the kWh, and then you times it times the amount that we charge per kWh. So let's calculate the consumption for a 20-watt LED and compare it to the old school incandescent. Now, this is time for you guys to participate, and you have your annotation tools over on the left-hand side. I'm going to ask everybody to get your calculators out. We're going to try to figure out how much we would save with the LED bulb. And there's a hint for you. So there is the calculation you want to focus to get that amount. And next will be the answer slide. So which one do you guys think it is? I would encourage you to participate and select one of these. No cheating, but if you want to take a stab and select how much it would cost to run that new fancy LED compared to the old incandescent bulb, go ahead and pick one of these, whichever one you think it is.
And while we're doing that, I do want to remind those who joined us a little bit later and missed the instructions. To the left side of your screen, there's that blue marker. You can click on that and your annotation tools will appear, and you can use those to mark your answer, as well as on the top or right side of your screen, there's a blue chat bubble that you can click on so you can chat back and forth with me. And if you have any other questions, again, we'll be sending the PDF, the materials, and the recording of the session, that we make sure that we have your email on file.
Great. I see some of you made some guesses. Some look accurate. There we go. Okay, we're all together now. $4.67. Good job, team. Let's compare. We look at the old technology versus the new technology. Same time, same operation hours, and it's going to cost you $23.50 per year to use the old bulb versus the new LED is going to cost you $4.67. So it's pretty obvious that going to LED is a sound investment. It's going to use less energy. It doesn't add the same amount of heat to your space. There's so many benefits with LED other than just crunching the numbers, but these are the numbers right here. They also last much, much longer. So you might think that, oh, this is not a big deal, $23 versus less than $5. But think about how many of these lights you have in your facility if you have those. And this, trust me, this adds up over a year. You know, times 20, times 30, times 40. It really can make a huge impact with energy savings. Replacing one 100-watt incandescent, you can save almost $20 per year. It's a good deal. So no more math, I promise. But the skill is power times time times cost. Anyone can do this, and you can do it with any kind of equipment that you have at your place of business to figure out how to save energy, how to save money. Next, we're going to move to business energy use. So this graph shows you commercial electricity use in the United States. You can see here that lighting is at about 27% of your electric use for, this would be small to medium-sized business customers, which is a huge amount. I think most people don't understand how much lighting, how much energy lighting uses. Now, second place goes to a combination. It's cooling and heating and ventilation, but that is still only 18%. So if you combine these two, or three, I'm sorry, you're still at 18%, less than lighting. So lighting is what we focus on with the majority of our customers because it has the best payback, and it really is a significant factor with the energy use at your place of business. So next we're going to look at some lovely pie charts to show you some examples of energy use with gas and electricity alone. So this is a sample for an office building. So if you manage an office building, this is the energy use profile, and this is with combined gas and electricity, and lighting is still at 23%. And your space heating is a little bit higher. That includes the gas component. If we look at electric only, lighting increases to 46%, almost half the energy use. So it is significant. Here's another profile for a retail customer. And lighting is at 55% with gas and electricity. You just go to electricity only, it jumps up to 59%. Warehouse building energy use. So energy managers out there that are listening, this is probably your profile. Lighting is at 32%. Your space heating is going to be significant for a warehouse. The other ones aren't as significant. And that's with gas and electricity. But if we just look at electricity only, you're over 50% for your lighting. So what do these graphs tell me? It tells me that if I want to reduce my power use, no matter what business I'm in, lighting is a good place to start. Then I would focus on cooling and heating. Next, we're going to talk about energy saving projects. So we'll have some samples for you to look at. Why? Why upgrade the lighting systems? Well, lighting, less energy consumption equals reduce maintenance costs, and that's a factor that many customers that I visit don't think about. They only think about the quality of the light, or there's a light burned out, I need to replace that. And they don't incorporate the maintenance factor with those lights. If you're changing bulbs every 3 months or every 6 months or even every year, if it's a warehouse space, you have to hire a boom, you have to hire somebody to go up there and change the bulbs. It's expensive. If you're in a smaller environment, if you're changing out track lighting 3 times a month, or I mean 3 times per year, you're paying somebody for that time to do that work, and that you have to incorporate that cost. Now, there's all the other factors that are not considered when I talk to customers. Lighting, the quality of lighting in the workspace. In your retail environment, it's crucial. You know, you really want your showroom or your place of business to pop. You want it to be inviting for customers to come in and spend their money for whatever product you're trying to sell. If you're in an office, there have been many studies that have shown that employees are more productive when light levels are appropriate. So it's about the health of your employees. It's better to have them happy employees and coming to work rather than not happy, and you know, there's costs involved with that. Now, because there is such a great opportunity for energy savings in lighting and retrofits, we're going to spend some time now discussing their benefits. Linear fluorescent. So energy managers, you probably have seen this in some of your facilities, office facilities, or even warehouse facilities. And we focus on old technology. The older technology with the fluorescent lights is called T12s. It's measured in 1/8 of an inch. This is tube lighting that you find in an office space in the ceiling. And what they run on is this device right here. This is a ballast. The ballast transfers the power, so it puts it into a form that these lamps can use. And the older T12, that uses a magnetic ballast. It's the older technology. It's less efficient. They've stopped making this bulb, the T12 bulb, so they're harder to find, more expensive. So there are incentives from the Energy Trust of Oregon to change these out to either LEDs or even T8s, which have been around for you know, 10, 15 years. And even with the T8s, there's opportunities if they're 10 years older, 10 years or older, you can use a more efficient bulb. So there's incentives from the Energy Trust to change those as well. But what we do is focus on T12s out in the field. We see a lot of these in older, with older businesses that have had their lights for, maybe 20 years, 15 years. And, with a high performance, what you would see in a warehouse area, you would see a high performance T8 replace a T12, and with the older T12 high performance that you would see like in a warehouse, you're going to have 20,000 hours of operation. You can now jump up with a high performance T8 and jump up to 50,000 hours of operation, or even more if you go to an LED fixture. So we're really focused on phasing out the T12s, helping our customers identify these opportunities. It's a really good opportunity to change those. The T8s, the technology is changing so fast, and the cost of LEDs are coming down so much that, 5, 10 years from now, it might be all LEDs. We're not sure. Right now, T8s and LEDs have about the same cost effectiveness. LEDs are a little bit more expensive. They take longer to pay, to be more of an attractive investment. Long hours of operation help that happen if you're interested in LEDs. So I mentioned the ballast here, and this is the, basically the guts of the light. Now, the T12 uses a magnetic ballast, and the T8 uses a more efficient, more modern electronic ballast. To change these out, this is not, it's not like just unscrewing and unscrewing a bulb. Basically, you need an electrician to do this work to change these lights out. And if you guys need help with that, that's what we help connect our customers with, Energy Trust Trade Allies, lighting designers, and electricians that can do the work for you. Now let's look at savings when upgrading from an older T12 system to a newer high-performance T8. So this was an office, and they went from 24 older T12s to 24 new T8s, and just basic standard office hours of operation, 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, and open on Saturdays. Energy savings, significant, and the annual dollar savings from doing a project is $400. This is for a small to medium-sized business customer. The incentive from the Energy Trust, $720. Simple payback of after incentives, 2.3 years with a ROI of 43%, which is pretty good. So we see a lot of customers do similar projects to this. Now this is where I talked about if your T8s are 10 plus years or older, you can go to a high-performance T8 in ballast, improve your light quality, you get more hours. Like I said before, you can go up to 50,000 hours if you're getting, and you'd be just getting up to 20,000 hours with a standard T8. So this really works out for customers that maybe have real long hours of operation, like a medical office, something that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's where the LEDs really should be considered. Even the high performance, you're still going to have it's going to be a better investment with those long hours of operation. High bay. For you energy managers, you have large warehouses. You probably have seen these lights before. They're very bright and they're meant for long hours. It could be storage, manufacturing. Sometimes you see these in retail. Just you know, if it might be a remnant from a former business. Maybe it was like a garage or something, and then they turned it into a retail space. So sometimes you see those. The metal halide on the left, that slowly changes color as it dies. Basically, it goes from pink to yellow to blue as it dies over time and gives less light. The high pressure sodium, that's more of a yellow light, and it's more efficient, but the quality is bad. If you have a warehouse where you need your employees to read labels or differentiate colors, they're going to struggle with high pressure sodium over time. So what we recommend and what we see a lot of customers do and switch to, and their Energy Trust incentives for, is changing these out to high performance, high output T8s, linear fluorescent bulbs, or T5s. Or we are starting to see some customers switch to LED fixtures. Specifically, if there's long hours of operation, it's the whole fixture that gets replaced. With the fluorescent, you're going to, depending on hours of operation, it's going to be 2 to 5 years, and it might be even longer if you switch to the LED, because it's just going to be a more expensive fixture. But we see customers that are doing that. They want to have the quality of the LED light, the instant turn on with it, and you know, the longevity of the fixture itself. So we do see customers actually switching to LEDs as well. Now, and also there's the component of occupancy sensors, and I see this in a lot of modern warehouses where the motion detection systems that are connected to the lights in the warehouse that work to turn off the lights when there's not a forklift there, or there's not people pulling inventory. You save energy that way, and those work excellent with the LEDs. They do not work with the metal halide or the high pressure sodium. Here's an example again for you, warehouse, and same hours of operation. This is still a smaller warehouse, Schedule 32, but $1,500 in energy savings. That's by switching 20 lights, 20 metal halides to going to the fluorescent, and payback is 3.5 years, $2,400 in incentives, and typical simple payback 3.5, and with a return ROI of 48%. So a very sound investment. lighting with LED. And this is an example of track lighting, but we see opportunities for LED lighting in can lighting. You might have cans in the ceiling and par lamps, and that's a really good opportunity for LED. So don't just think it's this bulb. There are larger bulbs as well that work with LEDs, and they're good replacements. We do see these track lights commonly in retail locations. Look up at a Starbucks. You've probably seen that they've changed all their lights to LEDs. They did that, I would say, at least 5 years ago for all their facilities. So this is an example of a halogen lamp. So it kind of has this shiny interior to it. It looks different than the LED. And what we see with this kind of lamp is you'll get about 2,000 to 8,000 hours of operation, where with the LEDs, these can last, 10 times longer. And so it's really a great investment. We see so many customers switching from the halogens to the LEDs. And, with the LEDs, they're dimmable. You get great beam spread. The color, there's a lot of bulbs, LED bulbs, that have improved in their the warmth of the color that they give off. They don't add heat to the space. So we see a lot of customers going to this option. And here's the next real-life example for you. 40 of those smaller, we call those MR16 bulbs, track bulbs that you saw on the previous slide, going from the halogen to the LED, 12 hours, regular retail operation hours, saving $428 a year instead of $600, and the payback in 1.4 years. And wowie zowie, look at that return on investment, 71%. That's a no-brainer. A lot of customers don't think about their exit lights. That's a great opportunity to change from incandescent or even fluorescent to LED. You're going from incandescent lasts you 2,000 hours, a fluorescent lasts you 10,000 hours, but an LED lasts you 50,000 hours. That's 6 years. So it's a great way, not a huge energy saver, but they last longer, and all the changes that you make add up over time. Occupancy sensors. I think we've all seen this one before, and this is a switch plate. Common in offices. Lights turn off after a certain time of inactivity in the room. And then you have fixture mounted. So this is something you're going to see in a warehouse that can be used as an occupancy sensor. It doesn't work with those high pressure sodium or metal halides. And then this is what we see kind of in schools, maybe it's a ceiling mounted. You'd see this like in a large gym or a large conference room, which when it senses activity, it turns on. Great ways to save energy. There's good incentives from the Energy Trust of Oregon on those. Typical payback is 2 to 4 years on those. Okay, I've talked long enough. Let's do some audience participation. Go ahead and check the box of what are your lighting opportunities at your place of business. Use the annotation tool on the left-hand side. Go ahead and pick a color and select what you have at your business, where you could make the change in lighting. If you have any questions about lighting system efficiencies, please send a message to Lorena. Awesome. That's a good one. This is the one, yeah. I like this one. T12s. Got to get rid of those if you have them. Okay, next we're going to briefly discuss HVAC systems. Cooling, HVAC is cooling, heating, and ventilation. And that's the next best, the number 2 energy savings opportunity when we looked at those pie charts. And thank you for your feedback on your future lighting project. HVAC. Rooftop units, very common. See these in, I would say, the majority of the business customers that I meet with at their place of business. And they're expensive. They're expensive to replace. So this is a large investment for a business, and you really have to allocate budget for changing out your HVAC system. The general rule of thumb is 20 years. That's when the HVAC system starts losing efficiency just because of the developing technology. But it really is just a motor, and in theory it's going to run. It's going to run 50 years as long as you keep it maintained. I would say that you need to have an annual maintenance plan for your HVAC system. You know, that means cleaning the coils, making sure the filters are clean and that it's running correctly. I would say the older your HVAC system is, you might want to consider doing it twice a year, having either doing the maintenance yourself or having an HVAC company come and assess the system. If it's been 5 or 10 years since you've had an HVAC company take a look at your HVAC system, you need to take a look at that to make sure it's running efficiently. But then again, it's a big investment, so you have to consider that when you're considering replacing it. There are incentives from the Energy Trust of Oregon. They're for larger systems, so 5 tons or higher. For most of the customers that I meet with, the small to medium-sized business customers, they rarely have a system that's over 4 tons. But for some of the energy managers listening on, you might have large facilities that have large units. So there are some tiered incentives from the Energy Trust for rooftop units that are 5 tons or higher. Split system heat pumps and air conditioners. If you have just a furnace or an air handler inside your place of business, you may have an air conditioning unit or a heat pump outside. This is called a split system. There's definitely cooling and heating savings going to the split system. But again, it's like the rooftop units, they're not cheap. You need to make sure that you get what you paid for with the existing system. And, you know, it's that general rule of thumb of 20 years. If you don't know how old your system is or you need advice, definitely consultate an HVAC company to give you an estimate of how efficient your system is running, how old it is, how it's operating. They can provide all that information. Now, if you do need a replacement, and if you do just have an air conditioner, you might want to consider a heat pump, because the heat pump savings, you get the savings with heating and cooling. As you can see here, you can increase the efficiency from 5 to 15%. Combustion services. If you have larger facilities, you might have you might have this system. I rarely see this out in the field, but again, with all your HVAC, it's a major investment. You want to make sure that you get, you know, consider your life cycle costs, you know, the 20-year rule of thumb, and, you know, moving to a new more efficient combustion furnace, you have to consider how much more efficient the new system would be. HVAC companies can provide that for you. Your old system might be 89% efficient, and a new system might only be 95% efficient, so it's not a huge jump with a huge cost. So you have to consider that, but maybe you have to replace it, maybe it's the end of its life, and so you want to get an efficient unit. There are incentives from the Energy Trust to help offset the cost of doing that. Combustion unit heaters. See a lot of these out in the field with warehouse. Very common. They're not too expensive to heat a warehouse space. We recommend using programmable thermostats with these. A lot of the old school ones will just have a dial. Those can become uncalibrated, so you have it set on 70, but it's probably really pumping out 75 degrees, so you're losing energy there because it's not accurate. Now, you might want to consider a radiant heater, and there are incentives to switch to a radiant heater. Radiant heater doesn't heat the entire room like this does, like this. This uses radiant heat comes down. I know you like my drawing of radiant heat there, but that's actually what's happening. And the people down here, it heats the space and objects in the room, so they feel more comfortable. Things heat up with radiant heat, that method, and I hope you like my drawing. Now, the radiant heater can use a third less energy than the unit heater. So there is a cost to the radiant heater. There are incentives to offset that, but it's something to consider for a warehouse space. It's a long strip. This is only 3 inches, but actually the radiant heater system, it could be 15 to 20 feet long, and it kind of hangs down suspended from the ceiling. You've probably seen these before. If you haven't, it's something to consider for your warehouse space. PTACs, package terminal air conditioners. If you stayed at a motel, even hotels too, you'll see this in the window, right? This is in the window, your bed's right over here, and this is what is used to heat and potentially cool your hotel room. They're not as expensive as the heat pump system, and there's some good incentives from the Energy Trust right now for these PTAC units. So we see a lot of these in hotels and motels, but I've seen these in warehouse spaces. So the office for a warehouse space, say that's a smaller space, and you want to keep whoever's doing the books that works in that office in the warehouse, you want to keep them comfortable. This is an excellent solution for that kind of scenario where you just want to heat and cool one room, one space, keep one employee happy, and the other employees can be out in the warehouse. So with PTACs, it's another significant investment. You have to consider that life cycle cost, but the potential savings is up to 25% in cooling and 50% in heating. Zonal electric heat. Zonal heater. So think of, if you ever live in an apartment, you've seen baseboard heaters. Those are long heaters that are cheap, and you find them in apartments, and they run along the floor. Or cadet wall heaters, a little thing with a little dial next to it in the wall, about 4 feet up, and that's another way that electric resistance heat is used. And this is a good replacement for that. The ductless heat pump, the latest and greatest in HVAC technology, but it's not really that new. It's been around for quite some time. It was developed in Japan, and it's ductless. So it just goes through the wall, And this is, they call this the head. This is, you'll see this, you've probably seen this before. It'll be mounted on an upper wall, and it's great for spaces to heat and cool, especially if you don't have existing ducting. Kind of like what I talked about before. If you have one office that doesn't have any HVAC, this is a perfect solution for that. If you're going to just use the one office or a smaller space, basically heats and cools one zone, and it's controlled like your TV, has a remote, so the office worker or whoever's in that space can be happy with by controlling the temperature with a fancy remote. So they also can. It's not a lot. Some of the older heat pump units have backup electric resistance heat, but these don't necessarily need that, and they can also operate at a very, very low outdoor temperature, so they can be very efficient. We see a lot of customers switching to these. There are incentives from the Energy Trust to do that, and you can cut your heating savings up to 50%. So we see a lot of customers switching to these ductless heat pumps. Okay. Next, simple steps to get started. Low cost and no cost opportunities. If you have a parking lot in your facility or at your place of business, and you have parking lot lights on during the day, during sunlight, that's a common thing that happens, and it basically is the photocell. So the photocell will be right above this, be a little bubble right there, more drawing for you. And it's got dirt on it, or bird poop, or whatever, and it's not reading all the light, and so it thinks it's night when it's day. If you have parking lot lights that are on during the day, during the sun, you need to clean those photocells so they work properly. So that's a way to save energy. That's a no cost, well, a low cost opportunity. Daylight. Maximize the daylight. It's free. It's free light, and it's the best light that you can have in your place of business. So definitely open the curtains and blinds rather than leaving your artificial lights on. That just makes sense. And being a dad of 3 children, this is important. Turn off the lights, please. Every time. It kills me, and I do it all day, every day. Turn off the lights, kids, please. When you leave a room, turn off the lights. Now, the motion detectors can help with that, but if you have old school, maybe put a sign next to it, with exclamation points. Turn off the lights. That's an easy way to save energy. Programmable thermostats, yay. If you have, like I said before, if you have an old thermostat, the one that you have to twist, it has a dial on it, that is old, and it can become uncalibrated over time. So you feel comfortable in that turn dial that says 60, 65 degrees. That feels great to you, but actually your furnace is running at 70 degrees. You just don't know it. So you think 65 is actually the 70, and so that's a way that you're using energy. Now, what I recommend for customers, if they want to get a handle on what they feel comfortable with, you can buy a digital thermostat from Home Depot for $10, and kind of like the one you put on your patio door or outside, so you know how warm it is outside. Well, you can use that inside, and you can figure out actually how warm it is in comparison to that old dial thermostat that you have. If you don't want to do that, I would say replace it with a digital programmable thermostat. And then you can program it to turn on when you're there and turn off when you're not there. You can have setback points. And these are what we recommend for occupied and unoccupied. So 70 for heating and 74 for cooling for occupied. And then drop down 10 degrees when people are not there. Great way to save energy. These are not hard to install. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. They cost about $30 to $80 at Home Depot, and it's pretty easy to set up. I would recommend that as a solution to just getting a handle on the energy use for heating and cooling your space. Think about scheduling. Think about, you know, the employees that are on those swing shifts, or, you know, if you're not hourly, if you're salary, maybe asking some of the customers, some of your employees to work on the same time. If they're all in the same building at the same time, you're going to save energy rather than having someone there in 6 in the morning and at midnight. So that makes sense. You can even do that with the janitors. You can have them come in during occupied hours to save energy. Like I said before, we perform regular maintenance on HVAC equipment. A lot of customers I meet with, they don't have a concept on HVAC equipment. They just understand that it gets warm and it gets cold and they're comfortable, but they don't, you know, they don't handle it. They don't know what's going on with the HVAC system. They move into a new location. So if you move to a new location, assessing the HVAC equipment, that's key to controlling your energy usage. Water heaters. Water heaters are generally factory set at 140 degrees. We recommend 120 degrees. With your gas water heaters, it might not have a temperature settings. There's ways that you can figure out how warm the water is coming off the tap, like with a candy thermometer or something like that. Electric water heaters tend to always have the water temperature on the water heater. Just remember that the electric water heater has 2 thermostats for the 2 units, so one at the top and one at the bottom. You have 2 plates, you unscrew those, and you can turn it down to 120 degrees. Plug loads, vampire loads, scary energy use. Not really, but there are ways that you can find out what devices are using when they're plugged in. And the Energy Trust of Oregon has a good program. They have a device called a kilowatt, and you can check that out. It's basically a device that gives you a digital reading on how much kWh the device is using when you plug it into this device. They're called the kilowatt device. And it's free, and you can rent it from your public library. Most of the libraries in Multnomah and other counties have this program with the Energy Trust. If you have questions, you can always ask us, or you can just go to your library, and typically it's just like a book. You check it out. You get it for a couple of weeks. It only takes a few days to figure out what is using energy. You just plug it in, write it down, and then you can do the calculation that we did before, and you can figure out what it's using. Do a night audit. A lot of times, if you have somebody coming in, the janitorial staff, you don't know what they're using. You don't know if they're leaving lights on. Drop by, see what's going on at night. There could be some energy use that you just don't know about. Then there are power management programs that you can use, smart plug strips. We have a program called Energy Expert, which we have 2 trainings coming up on. If you're interested in that, in looking at your power, looking at your hourly usage, that's something that there's programs out there that can do that for you. You know, the electric resistant heaters that office employees have, you know, you want to, or you have in your warehouse, look to replace those with a radiant heater. Okay. Participation time again. Go ahead and use the annotation tools on your left. I'm going to ask you this question. What are you going to do at your facility to save energy? Here are your options. Yeah, that's a good one. Turn it off. Yes. Tell me that my kids kill me. Yes, love it. All right. Thanks, guys. Energy Trust incentives. So here they are. Some things that, we talked a lot about lighting and HVAC, but if you have kitchens, there's great incentives and enhanced incentives this year with growth, with all the kitchen and food prep incentives. Refrigerator recycling. If you have an older refrigerator and you want to replace it, we recommend an Energy Star model. That would be great. But if the refrigerator is running, the Energy Trust will come by and pick it up, and they recycle the refrigerant. They also give you, I believe, it's $45. So it's a good deal. Get the refrigerator off your hands and get a little cash, and hopefully use that money to getting a more efficient refrigerator. PC power management, that's what I talked about. There's smart plug strips that you can use with motion detectors. You plug your main computer into that, and your auxiliary things that you have plugged in, after a period of non-usage, they shut down. So that's a good way to do that. Insulation, there's enhanced insulation incentives from the Energy Trust. You actually, if you have some existing insulation, you can qualify for their incentives. Custom projects, if something doesn't fit in, they're prescriptive. You've got some kind of boiler, any kind of thing that's different there, the Energy Trust will do a custom project with you. They'll do an analysis. So if you think you're too large or you have something that's just different, the Energy Trust has the resources to help you save energy and do a project. Multifamily and new construction, Energy Trust has you covered there as well. All right, take action. This is a checklist for you to use. Put it on the board at work, put it on the refrigerator at work. Something for your business. Track your energy consumption. Look at the low-cost suggestions that we talked about. Turn off the lights. Get your employees engaged in what you're doing. Get their buy-in. It's going to help you out in the long run. And ask PGE about potential projects and incentives. We'll help you out. We'll give you a consultation over the phone. We'll take a look at your energy use. And then we also provide free consultations at your site of business. So we'll do an energy efficiency walkthrough. No problem at all. So this is what we covered today. How to calculate how much power you actually use in your business day to day, what that costs, how different businesses use energy and their potential for savings. We provided ideas for improvements that can be made to building systems like your lighting and HVAC. And we covered low-cost and no-cost tips and available programs that can help businesses engage in efficiency measures. Free consultations. I'll come see you, no problem at all. Here's my contact information. Call me, and we'll go over your next best steps. And I would like to thank everyone for attending today. I will now connect you back to Lorena for some additional information and to our questions and answer session. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Before we get started on the questions, I want to remind you that you still can send more questions through the chat window, and we will be providing the materials to you within a couple days, so make sure we have your email on file. So, Chris, the first question, you covered quite a bit, and things that people would have to calculate and what to get incentives from. But many of us, as this question came through, we don't have time to spend on this. So is there someone that can help calculate or do paperwork to get incentives?
Yes, that's a great question. We can do that here. We're here to help you do those energy efficiency calculations at PGE. And if we can't figure it out, we rely on the Energy Trust. So Energy Trust has all the number crunchers that you need to do. You don't need to worry about that. Really, you just need to interact with us or the Energy Trust to identify a project. You don't need to know how many fixtures you have and how much they're going to save and do the research on an HVAC system. We'll do the legwork for you. You just need to get the ball rolling, reach out to one of us, we'll identify the project, and then we'll crunch the numbers for you. The Energy Trust will also help you through the incentive process. So it's really easy. The first step is to reach out and start the looking at a project, basically. So it's very easy.
Thank you. And the next question is, besides T12 fluorescent lights, is there any other stuff that I should get rid of ASAP instead of waiting until it breaks?
If you have the old school incandescent bulbs, any of those original, the ones that Edison invented, if you have any of those bulbs, I would say strongly look at those as a replacement with LEDs, just because of the maintenance factor, the hours of operation, and LEDs have come so far. It's just a great replacement. They're paying for themselves in just over a year in a lot of applications. So I would say if you have any of those old incandescent or even halogens, the par lamps, you have any outdoor lights that are halogens, look at LEDs. That's what you should focus on.
Great. And one last question is, I think you talked a little bit about this, but can I just replace my T12 lamps with T8 lamps without changing out the ballast?
No, don't do that. And I've seen that before. I've been out to businesses before. They have T8s, and then they've got one. They actually have all T12s, and then they've got one new one, but they've put T8 bulbs in the T12 fixture, and that is just going to make the bulb burn out. So you have to be a licensed electrician to do the work officially, get the Energy Trust incentives to do that. So yeah, you need an electrician to change the technology of the magnetic ballast to the electronic ballast.
Thank you, Chris. That was the last question, and thank you all for joining us today.